Hey guys, it's Brendan Borman, and we are back for another 270 video. Today is a special edition. I'll be joined on the phone by Nathan Williams to talk about the new candidates coming next week into 270. But just a quick reminder that I am still in school and my content has slowed down a little bit. This time next year, I'm proud to say that I'm going to be a history teacher, but by no means am I a history buff. But this game has taught me a lot about presidents, and for the first time, I'm including my Venmo link if you would like to donate to the 270 cause. I am going to be saving up some money to try to get a new laptop that I can use for personal when I become a teacher, but also to help me stream 270. So feel no obligation, but I will add that. Thank you guys for the idea. A couple people wanted to donate and didn't know how, so I definitely wanted to include that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce the Lone Ranger, Nathan Williams. Nathan, can you hear me?
I can. How you doing?
I am doing great. Hopefully the audience can hear you. I do have you on speakerphone. It's been a while since we have gotten the opportunity to chat, but we'll talk about some of the candidates that have already been introduced and the ones coming next week. For full disclosure, Nathan has actually just seen these stats literally about 2 minutes ago.
For
So
the first time.
for
So
the first time. So these are going to be initial reactions, and I'm looking forward to some dialogue. If he thinks they're too strong, too weak, just right, things like that. But anything you want to share with the community, Nathan?
nope. I just want to say it has been a long time, but congratulations on your educational advancement and hopefully becoming a teacher. That's going to be exciting. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be a great teacher. You've been a great teacher for a lot of people on 270, so I'm sure it'll translate well to the education system as well.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's kind of humbling going back to school and spending money so I can make less money in a different career than I am now. But I'm looking forward to being back in a classroom, and I'm really am a people person, so
Right.
having that interaction is something I'm looking forward to. But the first candidate that I want to talk to you about is the new JFK candidate that was introduced into the game. Have you had the opportunity to look at the new JFK yet?
Oh yeah, I played with him so many. I think I actually he's the only candidate I've played with since he's been released.
Okay, so you're
So
quite the expert. What are some of your favorite things or least favorite things about JFK 1960?
I guess probably I'll start with my least favorite thing because there's really not much. I think the only thing is he has no manufacturing bonus. I mean, that's not really going to like turn a game generally, especially if you play with a strategy that it looks like he is more targeted towards. Not having a manufacturing bonus is not going to make or break your game. Um, but it is always a good segue with the swing states if you try to get the swing states without Florida and then kind of transition that to the manufacturing. It is a good combination that makes very specific people in this game very, very good. And I guess we'll get to that later with one of the new candidates. But I don't really dislike anything about him. I mean, I think he is. I mean, he's definitely strong, and he should be. I mean, I don't think he's overpowered per se because I mean, it is JFK. Even if you don't really know politics, everybody knows who JFK is. The national group penalties, don't really affect much. Yet, the only you wouldn't go for those anyway, even in a big game. He has a really, really nice youth vote. But yeah, he's strong all across the board. I mean, I think what's good about he reminds me a lot of President Biden is just so versatile. If you are going for a specific group and you see that the other person is trying to prevent that or challenge you there, you can just slow spin to turn and then go somewhere else. And he's versatile enough to where if you do that, it's not like you are sacrificing a really good bonus for not good bonus. He can really kind of go for anything, and any bonus he's going to get, aside from what we said, the manufacturing, is going to be a substantial amount of money he's getting in return. So I don't really see any negatives about him. I think he's a really, really good candidate. He's not overpowered. I think they did a good job of making his highest state bonus 30% with the African Americans. So that is good that he's not, there's no crazy, ridiculous numbers in there. But he is very, very versatile, and I think that's what makes him so good.
Yeah, and you mentioned President Biden. So I know that whenever myself included, because I did contribute to creating this candidate, um, there was an emphasis on the 1960. So for those of you who have not heard, 270 has heard the players' voices and concerns that there is not any historical maps. And the 1960 map is going to be the first historical map that is released. And so having a 1960 version of JFK was at the top of their priority list. There's also going to be a new version of Nixon coming down the line, a 1960 version. It's actually probably going to be a little bit weaker than most Republicans probably would like, even though Nixon was a solid candidate. But I could actually see them going the route of having two Nixon candidates, where one is more of like a Watergate, kind of like a crooked Hillary, a meme kind of candidate, a little bit stronger, and then they have the 1960 version where, it emulates Nixon losing to Kennedy. So that's something that could be on the pipeline. But you mentioned President Biden, and President Biden has that strong oasis, so that African American, that swing state and Old South combination, and JFK has a 30-20-10, so you can go any route there. The manufacturing is interesting because if you look at the map of the Electoral College, when
he wins it.
Yeah, he won. Yeah, he
Pretty
won.
solidly.
He did, and he also won Texas. So the lack
Right.
of a manufacturing bonus, like manufacturing, is Texas. However,
off the top of my, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think off the top of my head, I would test my history. I know he won Texas, Illinois, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I think he might have won one more manufacturing state, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it must have been a game balancing decision in order to, kind of create that. But he does only have that one penalty, and minus 15% in oil and gas. That's definitely not a deal breaker at all. So we'll talk about.
And if I remember the map correctly, he would not have won oil and gas that election either. So it makes sense.
Yes, and we will talk about where he kind of ranks in tiers, as well as all the other updates. But just to kind of move along, because this next one is going to be very, very, very interesting. So just to show the screen here, you're on the phone, you can't see this, but I'm going to pull up the FDR stats that are currently in the game. So,
all right, we're jumping right into it, aren't we?
Yes, so Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the only president in American history to serve more than 2 terms. This is his base stats. You can see that little icon on the screen. I do have the vice president candidate for FDR, but I do have it turned off. So this is his base stats: 20% oil and gas, 20% high-tech agriculture, 40% manufacturing, which was the highest in the game for a long time until George Washington came out, 20% swing states, and then a whopping big 40% penalty in the Old South, and then some national group penalties, a minus 20% in labor and environment, and a minus 50% in big conservative. Before I show the new stats, I do have a question for you, Nathan. Do you think that his minus 20% in labor and environment, do you think that was an accurate portrayal of what it should have been in the original stats?
I think the reason why it was that is because of the environment. So if you do think back to his presidency, his 4 terms, it was very, and it's obvious the reason why he gets to manufacturing and export and high tech, very, very business oriented, infrastructure oriented. Environment really wasn't too big of a concern back then. I mean, you did have people like Eugene Debs that were, in the 20s that were, big, very far left when it comes to, at least for that time period, when it came to the environment. But then you had more mainstream populist Democrats like FDR who were kind of like, environment, whatever, we need it. So I think that's why, if you look at a lot of his policies, they definitely weren't and not environmentally friendly. But I think that was a big problem with a lot of people is they said, putting labor and environment together, because if you think about the labor side of it, he should have an enormous labor bonus because, it was all, worker, he was the Great Depression, president who lifted it down. Of course, that can be, debated on either side. But I think the reason why he did get a penalty is because environment was in there with that, and I think they docked him for the environment. So I would have preferred maybe like a small bonus. I don't think the penalty was crazy, but I would maybe preferred a small bonus. But I do see that's kind of a hard when you do have these old Democratic presidents that didn't really combine labor and environment together in their policies. It is difficult to rate them. Of course, now most Democratic candidates today are very, pro-green, but they're also, for the worker, kind of like Bernie Sanders. That's why he has such a high labor and environment score, because he ticks both of those boxes. So I think it's kind of a hard bonus to assess when you're going back to a time when Democrats didn't have the same priorities. Republicans didn't either, though. So I get it. I would have liked to see a small bonus, maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's a good take. And overall, FDR was a very well-rounded candidate and one of the original strong candidates in the game before all these candidates started getting some buffs. And he was one of those that has multiple paths. So you can play him out of Texas, you can play him out of California. He also has that swing state bonus. Not great out of New York, but you definitely can do that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show the new stats on the screen. And those are now on there. So we're going to start off with a 50% manufacturing bonus. Holy cow.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if anybody's going to have it in the game, it should be him. So that is, let's see, that is the highest bonus. 50% anything is kind of rare in this game, and especially, I guess, you have some individuals who have a 50% African American bonus in the game, but a 50% bonus on a group where the base is $75,000, I think is extremely rare. So that's going to give him $112,500 a turn extra instead of $75,000. So when he gets that, and that's without a VP. I also, just looking at this, I'm thinking of a great VP he could have that it probably is not one you would think of. If you want to boost that manufacturing and his African American, Deval Patrick is a great vice president for that. He's going to make that manufacturing over 60%, and he's going to put the African American, I'm pretty sure, over 25%.
What about Frederick Douglass?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's even good. Yeah, that'd make his African American, 30%, and the manufacturing would be 70%?
Yeah, that's going to be...
And it would boost his export as well. The only problem with the Frederick Douglass VP is it will cut 15% off his agriculture. But, I mean, if you get 70% manufacturing and you have Texas, your ag bonus is not going to... He still gets 10%. It's not going to kill you. I think... so what I actually was using prior and kind of toying with was Labrador, the president of Mexico. For his vice president, because it boosts his agriculture, oil and gas, and Latino. And before, he didn't have a Latino bonus or penalty. Now with his Latino penalty, you can still use that. And what it'll do, it'll neutralize, because with the updated Mexican president, his 50% Latino bonus will neutralize that penalty that FDR has, and while still boosting his agriculture and his oil. So that's the thing with candidates like this that are so versatile. There's so many vice president combinations, or you could go with like a Delaney if you wanted to increase his swing state and his high tech. It's just, that's the thing. A candidate like this, there's really, and they even cut down his Old South penalty by 15%. And then you have the labor and environment, which that does make sense. I think we had the conversation before about how labor and environment didn't go together, but if you thought of what labor and environment would be back then, he definitely would. That would be a huge block, for him. And of course, the minus 50%, big conservative and gun lobby. No one's going to argue with those. So.
Yep. And labor and environment, I do know that when you look at some of these top tier candidates, 45%, that aligns perfectly with RR84. And then also another candidate I was thinking about for a VP. What about Ross Perot?
So that would boost his, his high tech, his oil and gas, and his swing.
So that
the only thing it hurts is his African American, right?
I'm not sure, but I definitely know that would make him more back to where he is with a Texas-California split versus more so in Texas. I think easily you could say that this is one of the most strong multiplayer candidates that will be in the game after this update.
Oh, yeah, and if he is able to be sneaky and get California and Texas in any game, it's probably over. There's probably just no. I mean, there's just going to be so much money going into it, and it's going to be very, very easy for someone playing it, especially if it's like a multiplayer game and he gets that labor and environment bonus first. I mean, we're talking about this without any vice president, without any boost to any of these stats. If he were to get labor and environment in a multiplayer game and somehow it just ran, people just ignored him, I guess, and he was able to get Texas and California. I mean, there's just I don't see any. It would take a miracle to probably beat a candidate with these kinds of stats. I mean, he's built for that combination of Texas and California. If he gets one of those and is able to hold the bonuses for more than 4 or 5 turns, he's just going to collect an enormous amount of money to pressure important states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Illinois, those states that a lot of EDs are connected to those, and those are going to be states that are going to be very important when it comes, down to the ballot turn. It's just, I think, and when people see a huge bonus like that and they see someone get it, they immediately go to, and this is true with new and veteran players, when he pips into any one of the manufacturing states that you have, and he has that bonus, you're immediately going to think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pin it sooner or later because he's coming for it at some point, And I think it's just going to be very, this kind of candidate in the hands of a really good player is going to be tough to beat.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to talk on before we move on from FDR, you mentioned his Old South penalty. It did increase, better by 15%, but it is still minus 25. That is equivalent to Barack Obama. And when you think about the game being centered in the 2016 realm, yes, FDR did perform well in the Old South, especially when he ran for president multiple times. And there has been the Old South has changed. It used to be more democratic, things like that can be discussed. But I do think that in a balancing sense, it did make sense to give him a negative in the Old South. Yet, if you're playing against a candidate that is going to go after the Old South, you can still contest that. And even if you win an Old South battle, that bonus money, because you're so flexible everywhere else, you can, still contest other groups. Or if you use a vice president and you add and you try to increase your Old South, you could even do that and make him, truly a versatile candidate. So keep in mind where you think you're going to rank him, and we are going to go ahead and transition into the next candidate, which is Meghan Markle. So Meghan Markle has been in the game, I don't know, what do you think, about a year or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm not sure. Has it been that long?
Yeah,
Gosh,
I'm not sure. 6 months at least to a year,
okay.
somewhere in there. I knew of her. I am by no means a royalty expert, but I do know that there was a large outcry when Markle was introduced for how strong she was, and this is not a negative toward her as an individual, but I think anytime that there is someone who doesn't really have that political experience or has never run for president, there is an extra kind of critique that goes into those candidates. And looking at Markle, I have her current stats on the screens at 35% African American, 25% Latino, 15% high tech, 20 ag, 10% swing, 15% town and gown, and then those really high national groups, which includes, I believe, a 45% women's movement. It's cut off, but 30% evangelicals, 25% youth, and 25% labor and environment, and her only penalty is a 20% oil and gas. Is there anything that just jumps off that just kind of feels wrong with Markle?
I was very surprised at the evangelical bonus. And I think that I know that's kind of like really that's what you have a problem with, but and it's not that I have a problem with it. I just didn't know. I mean, I haven't really done research after the fact, but I didn't know that she was really big with evangelicals. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't really know if anything jumps out. I think the African American bonus being that high was a little surprising as well. I mean, I definitely think she does deserve. So, I think that the reason why, just for a little bit of background, why this candidate was even kind of proposed or pushed is, I think there was like a very short rumor, really quickly, that she was planning on running in 2024, and Trump came out and said, yeah, I hope she runs against me. So I think that might have been why she was putting the game, because she was actually putting the game around when that was all happening. So maybe that's why. But She, yeah, I mean, she's definitely powerful. She doesn't really have any when it comes to state groups. I guess the only like stat where you're like, oh my gosh, that could really turn the game if she gets that is the African American. But aside from that, maybe having no penalties in certain areas kind of makes her stronger than she should be. But I don't think she's like ridiculously overpowered or anything like that.
For sure. And it depends, on your play style and how you intend to use a candidate. I think Markle, is actually an underrated candidate in the game. And I think it is kind of like, people like playing with the Stone, or
Mm-hmm.
Vermin Supreme. Some of these candidates who are a little bit, fun to play with and maybe don't have the political experience or, and Vermin Supreme's run for president a lot, but he hasn't been successful. But he's still a pretty strong candidate in the game. I'm going to go ahead and show the new Markle stats, and we can talk about why. So I did create these stats with the help of, I believe, 6 total people. So I did have people from both political parties that I wanted to kind of get their perspective. I'm with you that evangelical bonus made absolutely no sense, and so I knocked it down to 0. But the African American bonus was at 20%. A lot of Democrats have between a 20 and 25, and just so you know, Nathan, there is a push going on. It's a game balancing move where every single candidate is going to be evaluated between now and Christmas. And the African American bonus specifically, there are only going to be a small handful of candidates who earn that 50% African American bonus.
Right.
So,
I think you mentioned that maybe like a week or two ago, and I was actually going to bring that up earlier in the video when I was talking about the 50% manufacturing for FDR. But I didn't know if you had announced that to anybody else, so I kind of was not going to say anything.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
50% African American, you think of like Barack Obama, the first African American president. You think
Right.
of, Abraham Lincoln, but even like Kamala Harris, who has made history as, the first African American vice president candidate. She also has been, a little bit of, kind of a rocky start to her VP. And, she still has a 40%, but 40% is still $140,000 of bonus money.
Yeah.
So again, there's nothing wrong with a 20% AA, 20% Latino. She is really outspoken and an advocate for minorities. Those are 2
Right.
well-deserved bonuses. High tech, 10%, a Democratic bonus. She does favor more toward the Democratic Party. And then the 25% swing bonus, that goes to more of the populist. She is known among people who may not even be involved in politics. But also, I do want to draw a comparison, and that is Melania Trump. Are you familiar with Melania Trump?
Yes. Yes.
So Melania Trump, she does have a 25% swing state bonus also. And just like this new Meghan Markle, does not have any penalties. So
Right.
again, it makes her a very versatile candidate. She's maybe not as strong at the top, so she doesn't have that big 35% African American. But if you count the number of positive groups, state groups, she has 6 positive state groups to go along with the 4 we talked about, a 10% counting gown, and then a 10% agriculture bonus. And then, she was well known for her national groups. She still has a 35% youth vote, a 25% women's movement, and then actually a very underrated Democratic primary mode candidate having that 35% LGBTQ bonus, the AA and Latino 30%, and then the big progressive bonus of 20%. So overall, what are your thoughts on this, Markle? And then I'll pose a question to you. If you were
So,
choosing between the old version and the new version, which one do you think is stronger, and which one do you think more adapts to your play style?
So I definitely think that overall the older one is stronger per se, but I don't think that necessarily makes her better. And what I mean by that is I think that the new one is definitely more versatile. I think that especially with the swing state bonus, that's 15% boost in the swing state is really helpful, and you can still. It kind kind of like, it's like they took 15% away, not they, because I know you guys made this, but I think this is really interesting. I actually just noticed this. It's like you guys took 15% away from African American and put it on swing states. But I think that's so when it comes to that, I guess if you're going for that Oasis kind of strategy, without an Old South penalty, I think she's still viable in the way that I played her before. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So she might be overall weaker if you add it up. She gets every bonus. What's her, kind of like Alex Eastman does with his model, which is a really interesting model, by the way. So I think she's going to be overall a little bit weaker, especially when you start factoring the national groups. But I think that she's more versatile, and I think if you played her the way that you played her before, I think not much is really going to change on that. But she is very, very good, like you said, in Democratic primary mode, just based on her new stats. She'd be very, very good in that mode. But she has no penalties, so she's going to be good in multiplayer games and 1v1s. She doesn't really have a kind of that knockout bonus that if they get, kind of like we were just talking about Obama, if you let Obama get African American, and especially if you let him get it fairly uncontested and get it somewhat quick, that's kind of one of those bonuses you're like, oh gosh, I got to try to end this game as soon as I can because that money's just going to add up. She doesn't really have that, but I think she kind of reminds me a little bit of like John McCain, where when you go into a game against John McCain, you don't think, oh gosh, this candidate's good, because there's so many new candidates now, you know what I mean? But when John McCain starts racking up those bonuses, he can accumulate a lot of money pretty quick. I think she's going to be kind of one of those candidates, this new version. I think she's going to jump up on a lot of people and maybe surprise them if they're playing against her.
Absolutely. And I think of the candidate we talked about first, that JFK 1960, maybe not quite as strong. I'd say maybe a tier below that. But, JFK, he didn't have a 25% swing, and as far as the national group goes, if you like playing national groups, that's a strategy. If not, you can go for Oasis. You can go for New York. There are different ways to play her. But you spoke about the models. So just for full transparency, she did decline in both of the models that I use. So shout outs to Alex Eastman and Khalil Blumen. She did drop in Alex's model by a handful of spots. I believe it was 4 spots. She's still a top 20 candidate in both models. And in Khalil Blumen's model, she actually only dropped 2 spots. So very, very, if I purchased Markle, I would not be upset with the update. It's not like they made my candidate way worse. But, it's one of those things where it's kind of a balance between historical accuracy and just trying to kind of have a good balance at the top. And I know the owner of the game is making a concerted effort to have the top 15 or 20 candidates be people who actually are, who were successful and household names to the general public. I don't know if you knew this, Nathan, but since August 1st, there have been 25,000 new players to TwoSeventy, and that's in large part thanks to the launch of Facebook games. So you can play TwoSeventy on Facebook games, and they track some of their statistics, and a lot of times people are downloading the game but not continuing to play, and that can be for a wide range of reasons. It might be the glitches. It might be, people are getting bored or stale. It's a game built in 2016, and here it is, 2021. I've given my feedback to the developers, but they have a lot on their plate. But hopefully, new game mode come out, and we can continue, playing the game. But I do know that the owner specifically is trying to appeal to the broad audience and have people like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and Barack Obama and FDR be like the strongest candidates in the game, and not, someone like Jill Biden or the Easter egg.
Yeah, no, I get, or Uncle Sam. I don't know. Are they going to change those
at
all?
They are not. They are actually pleased with Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam is not the most purchased candidate, but it's the most played candidate since August the 1st. So a lot of people.
It was successful then.
It was very successful, absolutely.
Well, the last thing I was going to say about Markle when you were talking, I would totally agree that people should not be discouraged at all if you bought her and got this change. And I would actually say this maybe it kind of made her. With the swing state change, I think it did kind of make her, I know in models-wise she only dropped, but I think a huge reason why she might have only dropped just a handful of positions in both of those models is because you can get the swing state bonus in 3 turns. It takes at least, 5 turns to get the African American bonus? 5 or 6?
And 4 turns to get high tech, and
Right.
and swing
So
states can transition right to manufacturing. They can transfer right to, if you go town and gown or, to New York. Like, there's so many paths from swing.
She doesn't have a penalty in the bonus that you can get in 2 turns, which is Old South, and she actually had a 15% increase in the bonus you can get in 3 turns with swing states. So I don't think you can look at her and say, oh darn, I'm not playing with her, anymore. I think if anything, it made that path even more viable than before.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to transition here to a new candidate. Or another updated candidate. There are actually no new candidates this week in the game. They're working on bugs and glitches this week. There was a coding error that they found in the back server. And October 1st, there will be an update that all TwoSeventy users must update or they will not be able to play the game. So a lot of people who play on older devices, you may struggle with, getting this new update, but there will be a push notification that goes out. I'll probably make a video about it, and that's going to be a good thing because I know TwoSeventy is investing in more storage so that they can have a better app, a better experience, and hopefully people can hashtag play more games. So let's talk about the next new candidate. Again, I know, Nathan, you cannot see my screen, but that candidate is Newt Gingrich. So Newt is someone who, maybe if you've been in the political landscape or heard, you definitely know the name, but I don't see a whole lot of people playing as Newt, and that may be because how bad of a candidate he really is.
Yeah, he's not good. So I'm looking at the old one because I was able to save what you sent me and kind of put them side by side here. There's not really, but even still, the change. Have you shown the change or not?
I have not shown the change. So
okay.
just looking at the original version, he has a 20.
The original one was he's horrible.
He has a 25% Old South and a fixed 15% export bonus, and that is it for state groups. He does have some okay national groups, but most people, I don't know what your number is for national groups, but for a kind of modest player, just a casual player, what's the number that really piques your interest on a national group?
If that thing's not at least 35, I'm not going for it.
Yeah, so 25% gun lobby, 20% evangelicals, and 20% big conservative. Without a vice president, you are most likely not going for that in the Nathan Williams book of advice. And then on top of that, you've got...
Unless you're Eric York, who could probably go for a national group when there's no bonus and somehow win the game.
There you go. But on top of that, he doesn't have a swing state bonus, and he has penalties in the other two 100,000 groups: high tech 15%, 20% African American, a whopping 30% penalty in Latinos. Does Newt Gingrich hate Latinos?
I don't think he hates Latinos, but they might not be too fond of him. Maybe that's why it's that much of a penalty.
Yeah, I had to do a little bit of research on Newt whenever I was giving my advice. And then 15% manufacturing, another Republican bonus, which I did kind of read about, and I can understand maybe why the initial rankings had him a negative, and we'll talk about that. But then town and gown, of course, and then the Democratic national groups, he had a penalty. So overall, he was one of the worst Republicans in the game. I wouldn't say Sarah Palin level bad, as far as the initial.
Yeah, she was rough.
She was pretty bad, but yeah. So let's go ahead and I will show the new stats here. He did get a 5% bump in Old South. So, of course, having 30% of anything, that'll catch your attention. So,
yeah.
Old South you can get in 2 turns. And so, not bad. 25% export, so a 10% bump there. And then, he does have a neutral manufacturing, so it gets a 15% bump back up to a base of 75,000. A 10% agriculture bonus, that's a Republican bonus. He was pro-farming. 15% oil and gas, which oil and gas was a hard one to kind of give advice on because he's also, throughout his tenure as a politician, has been kind of all over the place with global warming. And I know there was one picture I saw where he was taking a picture with Nancy Pelosi back in 2008. That was interesting.
Yes.
And, I kept the AA penalty, of course, but I knocked down the 15%, kind of in line with the old school Ronald Reagan neutral high tech. So again, that's more of a balancing than anything, but he still has the -20 in Town and Gown. And then he kept a lot of his national groups. He does have a 30% gun lobby. So again, if 30% catches your eye,
we're getting there.
you can go there. But again,
Yeah.
he's not that great of a candidate. But he does appear on conservative talk shows and TV shows. So a 40% bonus in that primary mode. If you really want to play as Newt, maybe you're best served to play as him in the primary mode. So overall thoughts on Newt and anything that jumps out to you?
I mean, he's better, but was that really a high bar to try to achieve? So he is better. So I do like that he is not given a penalty in manufacturing. There's still no penalty in swing states, so that's not, I guess, surprising. You're right, though. I bet both the agriculture and kind of oil and gas, maybe especially the oil and gas, is probably hard to decide on, because I know in the late 80s, he was all about fighting climate change, and even said that it was from human activity. And then when Obama was in office, he said that Obama favors those far left energy interests. And then in 2008, he was on. That's when the thing with Pelosi, where he's like, we didn't agree a lot, but we agree on this, and it was about climate change. So yeah, that's a. But he's a politician at the end of the day. They all do that. So everybody's back and forth. But it does, those kinds of things do make those very difficult to kind of judge. But I do think him being a Republican, if you think about it, if he ran, we're putting this maybe in the perspective, if he actually ran for president as a Republican and was the Republican nominee, I do not doubt that he would get, the oil and gas states votes. You know what I mean? I don't think he would not get that. And of course, I think the big oil companies would definitely rally behind him. In bonuses like that, it is hard to decide if their comments are back and forth. But again, you have to put it in perspective. So I think he's definitely better. Maybe the Old South bonus being 30% is nice, but again, he doesn't have really many bonuses other than that are going to supplement that bonus. You can't win a game by just getting all the Old South states. You know what I mean? So, but other than that, he's better, but he's definitely not going to be, a JFK kind of tier at all,
Absolutely. And he's someone who ironically comes into the Alex Eastman model right next to Nancy Pelosi and 2 spots away from Sarah Palin. So that's kind of a tier of strength wise. And they both, Pelosi and Newt have, definitely been career politicians. Definitely do not have the track record. And Newt, obviously, a little bit more, actually running for president, but not having that success. So I think that was a very fair place to put him. But yeah, we'll talk about the tiers here in just a second. But I do have one more candidate to show. So without further ado, shout out to Nicholas Hong. He really wanted to see a Gretchen Whitmer update. And after begging and pleading, we did get her moved up the list just a little bit. So Nicholas, you officially have 0 brownie points left. Sorry. But here is Gretchen's initial stats. So right off the hop here, the 10% across the board in a lot of states, a lot of state groups, African American, high tech manufacturing, swing, and town and gown. Those are very good bonuses. Those are probably the 5 bonuses, if you don't want to go Old South, that you would prioritize. If you were going to hey, you get 5 categories. Where do you want your attributes to be? It would be AA, high tech, manufacturing, swing, and town and gown, I would think.
Yeah, she has all the $100,000 bonuses. She has a bonus in it.
And manufacturing, which is probably the number one. Either that or town and gown is the number one. 75,000.
A great end of game bonus. I know you covered that multiple times in your videos, but I don't think that can be emphasized enough. Just how many, pure EVs. No, I don't think it's so many. I didn't mean to cut you off, but not so many pure EVs with the town and gown towards the end game, but just how many smaller states and how inexpensive they are. And a lot of times people forget those, and those can be, those 3 and 4 EV states can really add up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great bonus. And without town and gown, you are less likely to face pressure in New York than any of the other big four states. I mean, maybe
Right.
California, depending on the game, most of the time you don't face California pressure unless it's just kind of a specific game. But yeah, that is a good point. And then 10% youth, 10% labor, 20% women's movement. And then she does have penalties in oil and gas, agriculture, Old South. So 25, 25, and 20 Old South. And then big penalties in the national groups for the Republicans. So let's go ahead and let me get this on the screen here, show the new stats. So without further ado, we do have a bump up in African Americans, so 20% AA, which aligns with Markle, so that's good. High tech, 15%. 15% manufacturing, so she did get a 5% bump. And she is from, let's see, she's from Michigan. So having,
Yes.
having AA, high tech, and manufacturing, those are all state groups to her home state. So that's kind of a cool homage there.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool too.
And then swing state, same thing. That's 10%. That's that state level. A 5% bump in the town and gown, 10% in Latino. She did go back 5% in Old South, so that aligns again with some people we've talked about earlier. FDR, that aligns with Barack Obama. She does have a minus 20 in agriculture, which I believe that was maybe one of the hardest groups to rank was agriculture, and there were several people. I actually there were a team of 8 of us who looked at Whitmer, and her stats were all across the board. So 20% there for agriculture, minus 25 for oil and gas, but she does have a neutral export bonus. And then there's that 30% number for you. So if you like those national groups, she does have a bump up in women's movement to 30%, a 20% labor and environment, 15% youth vote. So if you want to go, a lot of people who go women's movement also go for youth vote just because you can get both of those at the end of turn number 2. That could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then she's a decent primary candidate. And then all of her national groups come in at minus 35. So overall, what are your thoughts on Whitmer?
Well, she's better. I mean, I think for sure, boosting that African American. I mean, they boosted almost everything on her except the swing states, and she even got a Latino bonus. I think sure her penalties when it comes to state groups are actually. So let's see, her Old South before was 20. Okay, so they pretty much just added 20. Or sorry, added 5% to her Old South and took 5% away from her agriculture. So, and agriculture and Old South are both $50,000 bonuses. So that's not gonna. When it comes to like her ranking, I don't think those two things won't factor in very much at all. But no, I do think she's definitely better. I think puts her kind of in a little bit more of a viable category. Again, she's not going to be like if you have to pick one candidate of the game, who you're going to pick, unless you're just like a huge Gretchen Whitmer fan, you're probably not going to pick her. And even if you are, you might not pick her. But I think she's definitely. I was just looking at her national groups here. It looks like she might be kind of a good option if you are kind of looking for a middle of the road candidate that you could use those national groups on. You could maybe pair her with like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and boost that labor environment. If you put her with RBG, that women's movement would be 50%, and it would also boost your high tech to 25%. So, I mean, she's viable in those ways. I think in a single player game, though, there's definitely better candidates. There's definitely worse candidates. True though. So she's better, but again, I don't think she's definitely not going to be like one of those top 15 candidates you were just talking about, of course.
Yeah, and 270 has clearly said that anyone who runs for office at a later date is always open to be reevaluated. So if Whitmer does run in 2024, they have shown that they are not afraid to release a 2024 candidate. So that could be a case where maybe she gets a little bit of a different model. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And so we're just going to go ahead and transition right into the tiers. So again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with some of the tiers inside the game, so we have 2 very common tiers, the RHL, the Rio Honda League. There is a tiers for that. And then the biggest monthly tournament that goes on into the 270 Lounge is the ATP tournament, and Zach Algaze does a great job of maintaining those. That is what a lot of times I base my tier rankings off of, is the ATP. And so whenever I was evaluating these candidates, I was thinking, where would I put them inside the ATP? So that's what this is. I'm going to go ahead and show where I have them, and then I'll let you go ahead and talk about maybe if you agree with me, disagree. But I have FDR clearly in that S tier. So right up there with an R84, with a President Biden, a JFK 1960, the cream of the crop. Is that where you see FDR?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. I don't think there's any question about it. I think his version before would have been an that tier. And I think I will just say really quickly though, I forget who it was that introduced me to him. I don't think the individual plays the game anymore, but this was a long time ago. Kind of not introduced me to FDR, but kind of showed me. This was before we had like the like Alex Eastman's models, and we had what bonuses are important and what we didn't really know as much. The community wasn't as informed and it wasn't talked about as much. But kind of just kind of pointed me in the direction of, hey, FDR is actually pretty strong. He's kind of underrated. Nobody really talks about him very much, And this was back when we had far less candidates. But I think it's really kind of cool that long ago a candidate, like him, still has a longevity of being relevant in this game. And so I would have put his version before in the S tier. But I think even now, even though you're taking some things away here and there, but you're definitely adding. And especially with that labor environment bonus, it makes him so. I mean, it's just he is definitely going to be a top 15, top 10 candidate, and I don't think that's probably ever going to change. So definitely an S tier.
I would have had the original FDR as an A. I definitely would have put him in the S, like for multiplayer, especially with Texas and California and the versatility there. But because of the weakness, the lack of strength is a better way out of New York, and just how long it takes someone to build out of Texas and California, and the newer candidates, how fast you can build with Oasis and different strategies like that. I would have had FDR just at the top of A, but you're right. And I'm curious, was that person Adam Montgomery?
It was not, although I know Adam Montgomery is a really, really, really good FDR player. So is Chris Lassinger. I don't know. I honestly forgot. I mean, I think he was actually about kind of at the end playing. I know me and who's the guy that has Vladimir Putin as his like an old, or no, it's
Bersky?
Lenin as his. Yeah. Me, him, and Bersky were in a multiplayer game. He was playing this individual who I can't remember was playing his FDR, and he ended up beating us both. And this was a long time ago, so maybe Bersky knows who it is. But I know he doesn't play the game anymore. Actually, I think I talked to him, just kind of dropped in to see how he was doing several months ago, and he said that he just didn't have time for the game anymore. But he's kind of the individual who kind of brought me into kind of realizing how good FDR really is and what that manufacturing based bonus can do and how it can, segue from swing states. And so, but yeah, but I do agree, hearing you explain maybe high A tier before, and I think too, with that 40% Old South penalty now it's 15% less, and even though he has a less of a swing state, it's still, it's not gonna. His swing state's not a problem. You know what I mean? His 10% is not gonna be an issue.
For sure. So Meghan Markle, I did drop down to an A tier. Now, I personally had her at the very, very bottom of the S tier, and I never really used her because if I'm playing in an S tier game, I'm choosing President Biden, I'm choosing Bull Moose Teddy, I'm choosing those type of candidates. But Markle becomes a very, very intriguing A candidate because of her lack of penalties. So I don't know if you think Markle's an A. Could you see someone argue for her being a B candidate?
No, not B. I guess somebody could try to argue that, but I think the reason why is because not only does she have no penalties now, but her bonuses are not so low that you're like, okay, well, she has no penalties, but there's really no bonus that sticks out. I think that the 20% African American, the 20% Latino, the 25% swing states, it's not like she has no penalties but hardly any. But those are some good bonuses, and so I think that it'd be kind of hard to say that she would be a B tier candidate. I do think that again, I've played her quite a bit. I played her when she came out. I was kind of messing around with the Ruth Bader Ginsburg vice president to give her like a 70% women's movement bonus in a multiplayer game. I think I even used that a couple times in a single player game and ended up winning. Just getting that quick and really that being the only reason I had RBG as a vice president. But yeah, I don't think it knocks her down definitely to a B. I think that maybe before she would have been a low S tier, maybe now I think she's right on the cusp. I think she's one that is like right on the edge there, but I definitely don't think you could make any sort of, I guess, credible argument that she should be dropped all the way down to B, because she's definitely still a very, very, very good candidate, very versatile.
Let's play a name game. I'll mention 3 candidates, and you tell me if you'd rather be Markle or the other candidate, okay?
Okay.
And it can be, any kind of way you want to take it, multiplayer, 1v1. I think typically from a 1v1 standpoint, but whatever feedback.
We'll just go 1v1 standpoint.
Okay, so the first candidate is: would you rather play as the new Meghan Markle or the current version of George Washington?
I'm gonna actually say Meghan Markle.
Okay.
I would, and I think it's because George Washington's very, very strong, of course, with that manufacturing in Old South. I'm trying to remember these stats off the top of my head.
He's got 40% all of the national. It's 40 big conservative,
right.
evangelical gun, and then 45% manufacturing, 50% ag, but big penalties in AA, Latino, and high tech.
Right, and he does not have a swing state bonus, correct?
No swing, no oil.
Okay, and I think that's why. I think you could still viably use the Meghan Markle Old South, and I think that would be a kind of an interesting game against a George Washington. If you both went Old South first, you could just transition to swing, and if you beat him there, I mean, you've got $25,000 extra return on that. So I think that is probably a very, very close competition between the two, because I do love George Washington the way that he plays. I do love it. I think that his stats were designed very, very well and very good, and they complement one another extremely well. But I still think I would take her just for the longevity of the game. I think George Washington is great, early game, and if you can hold on to those bonuses and really kind of stack that money up, then he can be kind of a monster towards the middle and the end of the game where you're just like, I don't know where to defend. But I think longevity-wise, in a competitive game where bonuses are being, taken away for a turn and gained for a turn, I think that she is better on that front.
Perfect answer. What do you think about the new version of Meghan Markle or the recently released Kamala Harris 2024?
I've actually not played with the new Kamala Harris 2024. I have her, but I haven't played with her. And I think that so she is good. But again, does she have a swing state penalty?
I don't believe so. I think she is either neutral. I'd have to look, but the way she was designed was, I think she has a little bit stronger bonuses at the top, but she also has less pathways. So it just to me, it comes down to personal preference. If you like having it, one set way and just try to outslug your opponents, or if you'd rather have that versatility. So I think those are 2 names that are pretty equal. In the same kind of vein. And then the third candidate, which is actually...
just for the record, I'd probably still pick Meghan closely in that Kamala Harris or Meghan Markle battle.
Okay, and then I'm assuming you probably pick Michelle Obama over...
Yes, definitely.
Okay, just making sure. So those were...
Michelle Obama's S tier, correct? I mean, don't you have her there?
She is. She's at the... Okay, she's actually... Depending on which model, she's kind of toward the bottom. I like her quite a bit, and of course she doesn't have that big manufacturing bonus like her husband does. But just wait a couple weeks, and there might be some changes to some of the Obamas. Hint, hint.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's, man. Are you kidding me? There's Democrats that would be so excited if she were to do that. But no, I mean, they've said for years and years that she's not interested in politics, but who knows? But yeah, no, Michelle Obama definitely. I think that there's very few candidates that I'd probably pick over her. I mean, maybe if you want to talk about like Ronald Reagan 84 or President Biden, but other than that, I mean, I think she is just, and she complements, I think, the way that I like to play so well. I do like going to that swing state for that Old South and kind of just transitioning that and kind of realizing that if my opponent is trying to go for the same stuff, it's okay to really, really low spin a couple turns and then kind of get them guessing and then kind of just go your own path. And I think she's really, really good at being able to do that, because she's not now if you can get New York with her, then it's great, but you can also go the Florida route with her swing state bonus. So I think that she she is very, very good when it comes to her bonuses, the percentages, but she's also very good in the sense that your opponent kind of is, I don't know where this person's going to go because they have to worry about that huge AA bonus. But also, she has really good bonuses in like high tech and swing states, and I mean, so
Yeah.
you can't sleep on her at all for in any amount of turns because very quickly if she starts accumulating bonuses, no matter what they are, it's going to very quickly kind of get out of control if it's a good player.
Absolutely. And I am looking at the clock here. I have got to wrap this up in just a couple minutes. My son's getting out of daycare, and today is the day I get to pick him up. So I'm getting excited because, yeah, those are the day. He's starting to get to the age where he's like, "Hi, Daddy. Hi, Dada."
Right.
I'm like, "Hi, buddy. How's it going?" But real quickly, I'm gonna show the Newt and Whitmer one more time. Who do you think is stronger, the new Newt, or the new Whitmer? And do you think they're both C tier?
Yeah, so I do think they're both C tier. I think that Whitmer's higher in the C tier than Gingrich, though. I think she's definitely better. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that overall, I would definitely choose, if I had to choose one person to win a match with, it would be Whitmer um, over Newt. I think, and actually, Whitmer comes in at 98 overall in Alex
Okay.
Eastman's model, and Newt comes in about 150. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that she comes in, let me hear that one more time. She comes in at what?
98.
And he's how low?
144, 146, somewhere in that. I don't remember the exact number, but it's
Okay, so yeah, so she's definitely better. And that's what I figured as well. I didn't know she was that better, but I guess when you start thinking about all the penalties he has.
And also, a lot of these candidates in that B and C tier, according to the model, like there are 60 candidates separated by like less than like 4 points. I mean, it's personal preference in the build, and yes, the model's not perfect because some bonuses are better than others. Some correlate better than others. That's why I like looking at Khalil Blumen's model as well, because his shows, not only the different path bonus, the different correlation, but it also has an overall strength. So I do want to have Khalil on a video talking about his model, like I did with Alex Eastman in a feature video. I just have been so busy, and I just really, really wanted to get this video out. I haven't had any content in over a week, and I'm really appreciative that you were able to jump on and kind of go over these stats with me.
Oh yeah, it's always fun to kind of dig in and talk about stats, and it's a game we both love and both been playing for a long time. So I'm not going to stop anytime soon. So it's always fun to jump on with you. It's always fun to talk about this game with somebody that's really, really knowledgeable and has helped a lot of people in the community get better and even hone in on their skills they already have. So thanks for having me.
You betcha. And one shout out to Eugene V. Debs, who actually helped me create the new FDR stats. So,
nice.
Yeah, right. Number one in the world, but I'll continue to be number one, hopefully in your hearts. But yeah, thanks Nathan, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And until next time, we'll catch you guys in the next 270 video. Nathan, send us home.
All right, see you guys. Have fun playing 270.